Football Sunday doubleheader. First in Green Bay, the Packers face the Lions.
Got it! Touchdown!
Then at MetLife Stadium, the Giants host the undefeated Patriots. Coverage begins Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio. Passion, opinion, must-hear radio. This is the Paul Finebaum Show. And now, Paul Finebaum.
We welcome you back. We're in Starkville, Mississippi, where the conversation until a few moments ago concerned tomorrow's Alabama-Mississippi State game, one of the most anticipated games of November in the SEC. But about 20 minutes ago, we were stunned by some news out of Missouri. It has been that type of week, and it has grown even worse for the University of Missouri with the announcement that Gary Pinkel will step down at the end of this season due to health reasons. It was announced as Missouri landed in Kansas City for tomorrow night's game at Arrowhead with BYU. Pinkel's decision is health-based, as he was diagnosed in May of this year with lymphoma, which is a type of a non-Hodgkin lymphoma cancer of the blood. Pinkel initially decided to keep coaching, and after more tests in late October during the Mizzou bye week, he decided, after a consultation with his family, to step down at the end of the season. Missouri taking on Kansas City tomorrow night. Missouri is in Kansas City tomorrow night taking on BYU. Let's be joined now by Desmond Howard from College GameDay, obviously getting ready to talk about so many events in Waco, Texas. Desmond, thank you so much for your time. Let me begin, if you'll indulge me, with the news of the day from Missouri. It has been an incredible week at the University of Missouri, made even more amazing with the announcement about Coach Pinkel. Good afternoon, and we would be interested in getting your reaction to that.
Yeah, well, first, good afternoon, and thanks for having me, Paul. I was actually just made aware of that a few minutes ago. I was actually at the barbershop, and I was surprised because I didn't know of the health issues that he had. I wasn't aware of them. But obviously it's serious enough that, he decided to stop coaching and step down. So, we have a coach that's going through, whatever he's going through, and none of us know the extent of it. And I think it's best for him to step away and just attack whatever he's dealing with head on, and so he can handle it on a regular and a daily basis, and not have to deal with the distractions and the scheduling and the heavy schedule that a coach has. So, I think that obviously it's the right decision for him, and I hope that he gets well.
Talking to Desmond Howard, who is in Waco for College GameDay tomorrow. Desmond, moving beyond that breaking news, let me get your thoughts about where you are. You have Oklahoma taking on Baylor. It's one of the biggest games of the November slate in the Big 12. Your thoughts on that as it relates to the topic du jour every Tuesday night, the college football playoff rankings?
Well, this is a big game for Baylor, and I think Baylor's season actually starts tomorrow, so to speak, because, I know they're undefeated, but they have not played a team, with a winning record. Like all the teams that they've beaten, not one team has a winning record. So it lets you know, in my opinion, the caliber of opponent that they've faced up to this point. So tomorrow is going to be a different monster. Now, of course, they lost their quarterback due to a neck injury, so they're starting a freshman named Jared Stidham, I believe. Yes, Stidham. And Jared played a week ago against Kansas State. Played well, too. Thursday night game on the road. But, it's a home game for him. But I believe this is a different caliber of defense that he's going to face. And I got to believe that the Sooners are going to try to come at this kid and try to pressure him. If they can't get to him, then I expect them to try to, mix it up on the back end, try to confuse him with coverages. But he has one of the best receivers in the country on his team, named Corey Coleman, number 1. I mean, he's just an explosive, dynamic, playmaking wide receiver, extremely competitive. Paul, he's probably maybe a little shorter than me, but the guy has incredible athletic ability.
Is that possible?
Okay, not that fine. But no, he's a short guy, but he plays much bigger than he is, and incredible catch radius, and anywhere around him you throw the ball, he's going to be able to get it. So, and then they got a running back too named Shock Linwood, who's just another explosive guy of great speed, and so I think if it's important that those guys get their touches, that the quarterback Jared doesn't do too much or doesn't try to take on too much, especially as a true freshman.
Chatting with Desmond Howard. Desmond, we're in Starkville where Alabama comes in here taking on Mississippi State and Dak Prescott. First, your impressions of Alabama, and do you see any danger lurking here tomorrow for the Crimson Tide?
Well, I was very impressed with Alabama's offensive and defensive lines last week against LSU. I think they dominated the trenches, and that's how they were able to walk away with that victory as soundly as they did. Derrick Henry, obviously, he had a big game, but it all started in the trenches for me. When you can see those guys getting movement up front and then getting penetration from a defensive line standpoint where they're hitting Leonard Fournette consistently in the backfield, then this is the Alabama that we're used to seeing. And I said it on SportsCenter earlier. If that Alabama team that we saw a week ago shows up for the next several weeks, there isn't a team in the nation that can beat Alabama. Now, the flip side, in my opinion, is that people got to figure out how to get to the quarterback. I still don't think they have a lot of confidence in Jake Coker. So if you can try to contain Derrick Henry and get to the quarterback, then that's going to be your best shot. I think Dak Prescott, he presents a challenge because one thing that we know that affects the defenses of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban is normally a dual-threat quarterback, and Dak is definitely a dual-threat quarterback, but he doesn't have a lot of help this year, not like he had a year ago. So he's pretty much a one-man show, and I don't think a one-man show is going to be able to beat Alabama, but I think it will present an interesting challenge for their defense.
Desmond, finally, just when all the conversation about the four-team playoff, where are you right now with where this committee is?
Well, I told people last week when we were going down to Tuscaloosa, I said, well, you got Alabama playing LSU, and you have Notre Dame sitting at 5. I said, I don't see how Notre Dame won't slide up into the number 4 slot if, with one of these teams, lose, which is going to happen, either Alabama or LSU. One of these teams got to lose, so I don't see what's going to prevent Notre Dame from moving up. And so I anticipated what was going to happen, and it happened. So it wasn't a surprise. Now, what people are concerned with now is, well, will they stay there? And I'm thinking, if Notre Dame wins out, they stay there. There's no way they're going to move. No way that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee will move a Notre Dame out of that 4th spot, even if you have a Big 12 team that's undefeated. But with that being said, of the 4 teams, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, of those 4 teams, Paul, I guarantee you 2 of those 4 teams will lose before we end the season.
Well, I listen when you talk, Desmond, no doubt. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Talk to you soon. Desmond Howard, live in Waco, College Game Day tomorrow morning. Again, more news on the Gary Pinkel resignation announced about 45 minutes ago, where Missouri will take on in Kansas City against BYU. Missouri and BYU in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. We'll talk to Dave Matter, who covers the University of Missouri for the St. Louis Post-Disptach. We'll get his reaction to the stunning news this afternoon on Coach Pinkel. We'll be right back.
Have you heard?
Welcome back. We're live in Starkville as the sun beginning to head toward the horizon as a crowd here loaded for tomorrow afternoon. An exciting scene at the Junction. An exciting scene that had energized all of us, including a conversation earlier with Coach Dan Mullen. And then about 30 minutes ago, we heard the news that Gary Pinkel was stepping down. What an incredible coach. He's been the Missouri coach since 2001, the winningest head coach in school history. He was the 2014 SEC Coach of the Year, bowl game 9 of the last 10 seasons, and truly a remarkable individual, tied with Bill Snyder for the 4th most career wins among active coaches. Obviously, we know the story about getting to the SEC championship game 2 consecutive years. That will not happen this year. But for those of you who perhaps are just getting into your car or walking in from work and you're wondering what is going on with Gary Pinkel, it was announced about 45 minutes ago that Coach Pinkel will be stepping down at the end of the season. It is health-related. He was diagnosed in May of 2015 with lymphoma, a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the blood. He made the decision in May to continue coaching. He had great energy. No one could tell. And then after the bye week, after the loss to Vanderbilt, he went in for more tests and more reassessment, and on October 27th decided that he would step down at the end of this season. And then obviously the events of last week, I don't know if there had been some thought to announcing it earlier. I really don't know, but Coach Pinkel announced today that he is stepping down at the end of the season. So we will continue to get reaction to that, and we'll take some more phone calls here as well. Let's check in with Truman, who we had the opportunity to meet last week in Columbia. Truman, you're on the Missouri campus right now. What is the reaction?
Well, Paul, I guess I can only speak for myself. But I guess you can say this whole week I've been able to stay strong until now. It's really, sorry, excuse me. It's something else when a coach can make a fan feel a part of the family. Sorry for my voice. I'm kind of sick and I'm a little emotional.
I understand. I completely understand, Truman. Well, listen, thank you so much for calling. We'll talk soon, I hope, and be well, my friend. Ken is up next in Chattanooga. Ken, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. It's a pleasure talking with you. I want to say I'm a Christian, and I pray for anyone that has illness, and I just pray that God's will be done in his healing of Coach Pinkel. As far as the events that happened this past week, I just want to say people have a right to protest. There's ways of going about it, and as far as the football players saying they weren't going to play a game and basically blackmailing the president to resign, I would say that if they're not going to practice and not going to play, that they could have been told that if you're not performing your duties as a football player.
Well, let me say this again. Listen, I respect what you said, and I'm not here to debate. I mean, I think everyone has their opinions on that. And I said this the other day. I'll say it again. I thought Coach Pinkel handled the moment with grace. He did what he had to do, and knowing now what we didn't know then, I think was even more remarkable. Thank you so much. Dave Matter joins us. He has been at the front end of this breaking story for the last hour. Dave, thanks again. We visited with you a week ago on the campus of Missouri, and it's just remarkable what has happened since then. Thank you for your time, and what can you tell us about how all this came to a head today?
Well, there were rumblings like there usually are on a day like this, starting out, I'd say, late morning, and then it got really quiet. You send out all these text messages and emails and calls, and when it gets really quiet, no one's responding, something's up. And then sure enough, I got news that this was happening. They hoped to delay this until after tomorrow's game and announce this on Sunday, but it got to be where there was just too much buzz, too many leaks or whatever it was, that they went ahead and did it. And, and now we know too that Gary Pinkel told Missouri's Board of Curators on Tuesday night that he planned on resigning. So this wasn't something that just kind of happened today, the result of mounting pressure from all of this stuff with the protest and the boycott. And he also told Mack Rhodes, his boss, in late October, that this was going to be his last season this year. So this has been kind of in the works to some degree. I know people want to develop a conspiracy theory and say that he's leaving because of the way that this protest thing went down. But if anything, I think the frustration maybe and just the stress of something like that maybe just reinforced his decision that it's time to retire.
Dave, you're there every day. You're around Gary Pinkel. Did you have any inkling that something was up, anything was up?
I know that myself and maybe one other person that covered this team has kind of heard some rumblings that there was some health concerns in the summer, but it's not something that you bring up on your own. You kind of wait and see if something unfolds from there. Obviously, and any man in his 60s, and especially in the conditions that these coaches work in, we see it all the time. But this year, something seemed a little bit off, and part of it too is Gary gets a little cranky when they're losing, and it's a kind of a chicken or the egg thing. Are they losing because he's cranky, or is he cranky because they're losing? Well, like most coaches, it's not fun when you're in a losing streak and your offense is scoring touchdowns and you're losing games and losing to teams that you're used to beating. So looking back now, it makes a little bit more sense that he was going through this health situation. At the same time, when you know it's your last year of something you've been doing for 40 years, you want to go out with a winning team and on a good note. So the more you lose, the more that becomes difficult to do, and probably the crankier you get. So it all kind of makes sense now. I hope for his sake he gets to, enjoy these next 3 weeks as much as he can. But, I don't know if he has the team to be able to do that.
Dave, not to try to turn you into something that you're not. You're a great writer and a reporter, but you may know more than we do. I mean, all we know is what is in this release about the non-Hodgkin lymphoma, cancer of the blood. Can you give us any more information on that if you know it?
Not really. I've spoken to a few people who said that this was really tough for him, over the summer, and he got a handle of it, and they figured out what it was. He got married. Gary got married in July, and I think that was not that was related to anything, but I think it was just his life has changed a lot in the last few years, and I just kind of get the sense that he knew he was on the back nine of his career.
Right.
So I don't know much more about the health situation. I don't know if we'll learn much more. I think it's under control for now from what he stated in the release. But I think he just wants to, the stress and the grind of coaching college football these days, especially when you've got half your team protesting and boycotting, that just makes this job that much more difficult to do. So I can see where the guy wants to, step back, step away, and enjoy the rest of his life.
Dave, I don't know him that well. I do know him, and I will just add this. We were together in Birmingham, and again, I realized we weren't sitting at a coffee shop. We were on live television, but we had a conversation, made some reference to his marriage, talked a little bit about his travels over the summer, and he was as reflective, as philosophical as any time I'd ever not heard or seen him. And it did strike me, it was just a mesmerizing conversation. This was in now late July at the SEC Media Days, and I walked away shaking my head about Gary Pinkel, about how different he seemed, and I'm not trying to infer anything, but now it does make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I think when we hear about things like this and have it confirmed, then when you think back on conversations, you think back on situations, and you have a new perspective on things. Let's not forget, he dealt with losing his quarterback mid-season and having to go play a freshman who has really struggled, and that just added another layer of stress on top of all of this. So yeah, it's been a really trying year, and and now that we know what we know how much more trying it's been. So. I'll be really interested to see just how he approaches things. And we'll talk to him tomorrow night after the game. I believe they're going to have something for him, maybe Mondays as usual, media day. But yeah, it'll be interesting just to hear him explain things.
Is there finally, is there any thought? Is there anyone around? Is there any thought of succession, or do you think it will just be a normal open the doors and national coaching search?
Well, if there's anybody on this staff who would be in line, I think, is possibly Barry Odom, their defensive coordinator, who is a Missouri guy who has done an outstanding job this year with Missouri's defense, and he's made he hasn't hesitated when he's asked the question, do you want to be a head coach someday? And he absolutely does.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he snapped up somewhere, if not at Missouri. A logical candidate would be Tom Herman, only because the man who hired him a year ago to be the head coach at Houston is now Missouri's athletic director, Mack Rhoades. So that's a logical connection. I think you now throw Missouri into the Justin Fuente mix, the head coach at Memphis. I think he'd be an attractive candidate for Missouri, and I think Missouri would be an attractive place for him. So it's not a great year to be hiring a coach because there's so many kind of similar jobs open. And now you've got two in the same division with Missouri and South Carolina. So it'll really be interesting to see how it shakes out. The one thing is we know now that Mack Rhoades has known about this for almost 3 weeks, that Gary wasn't coming back next year. So it's not like he has to start making a list today. He's had some time to think about this a little bit.
Yeah, no, I remember a week ago, last night, I was talking to Mack Rhoades about Tom Herman and what he left behind at Houston. Anyway, the ironies of this week, and for you, just a normal week in your life, I'm sure, Dave.
Oh yeah, Missouri plays a basketball game, by the way, tonight too. So we'll try to cover that as well.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much. I know it's a very busy day, and any of us who have ever been there during breaking news, the one thing you don't want to hear is a request to be on a talk show. But Dave is first rate. We appreciate him being with us. We'll take a break. We're live in Starkville with more of our show. We'll be right back.
Mom, I can't...
There's a land rush. Everyone getting their place for tomorrow. We're live in Starkville, and what a scene it has been all day, and what a scene it will be tomorrow as Alabama comes to town, a 2:30 local time kickoff, and we are here all day. Coach Mullen was with us earlier. We've certainly enjoyed the time. Obviously, the Gary Pinkel resignation has been the big story of the second half of our program. We go back to Waco, Texas right now. Lee Fitting, the senior coordinating producer of College Game Day. Game Day in the Big 12 country tomorrow as Oklahoma and Baylor get together tomorrow night on ABC. Lee, thanks for the time as always. What a week this has been.
Crazy, Paul. Just when you think all the news is done with it, it gets crazier and crazier. But, here we are. First trip to the Big 12 all season.
Yeah, well, you did, I guess you can't accuse it. No Big 12 bias for Lee Fitting. But anyway, Lee, let's talk about the show tomorrow. Obviously, a lot of news has happened this week and more today. I'm sure it will all be addressed as well as the other story, the college football playoff.
Yeah, we'll be, wide spectrum of stories for tomorrow, Paul, and all over the happenings in Missouri this week and the reaction, the fallout from that, and the Pinkel news today. But, it's the Big 12 is at the heart of the matter again, and it's going to get really interesting. And just sitting in our production meeting today to listen to all the guys' takes is really interesting. The big topic is, does a team from the Big 12 have to be undefeated to get in? And that's sort of the center of the show and the center of the discussion tomorrow.
Yeah, and it seems to me, Lee, that it probably does. I don't know what you're hearing, but I'm sensing that is the direction.
Yeah, I think that's where sort of all our guys stand and where I stand is. I can't picture a one-loss Baylor or one-loss TCU or I think the team that has the best chance with one loss would be Oklahoma if they were to run the table and beat Baylor this week and beat TCU next week and beat Oklahoma State. They got a darn good chance of getting in, but then you got to kick someone else out.
Lee, let's talk a little bit about the college football playoff because you can't go anywhere now without that being the centerpiece. Week 2 of the reveal. I know that will be the topic, one of the major topics tomorrow. I mean, having watched this and being as close to it as you are, do we have any better sense of what this committee is doing or what they're trying to say with Notre Dame at number 4?
No, again, Paul, like I told you last week, I just go back to and telling people to be patient here. Like, we're only 2 weeks into the rankings here. Give it another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and things are going to sort themselves out a little bit more. But, I thought Herbie nailed it on the head on Tuesday night when the rankings came out. Can you really see Notre Dame winning out and dropping out of the top 4? And I'm not sure I can with, not only what they accomplished, but their brand name. And I know the committee says they don't look at pedigree of program, but I think that's human nature that you take that into account. So it's interesting. I mean, just the lack of respect for Oklahoma State is interesting to me. I mean, that was a convincing win against TCU, as convincing of a win, in my mind, as Alabama had over LSU, and they sort of didn't get the love that other teams have gotten. So I don't know. I know Coach Blyle's down here is sort of baffled by it all, and he knows that if he wins out, he'll likely get in. But, there's a lot of sort of drama down here, Paul, in Big 12 country right now.
Yeah, no doubt, and so many compelling games as well. I know I mentioned this, or we talked about it a little bit last week, but you're certainly at the epicenter of college football. I saw the audience last week for Game Day may have been a record. The numbers that continue to watch this sport, regardless of where and how, it's just enormous. What do you attribute this to? Is it the playoff? Is it that college football has just become so unpredictable? What do you think it is that continues to draw so many people into the sport on television?
I don't think it's one thing, Paul. I think it's a culmination of all the things you mentioned. I also think a factor that has a great deal to do with all this is more games in prime time. I think draws a lot of people in. In the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you see more and more games on prime time. College football used to, be played traditionally in the afternoon. I think you're dragging more the casual fan in by having these games at night. And, we're due. We're partly, to blame for some of this, but we make things into bigger events than they are, which draws the casual fan in. And, the playoff and the rankings and the drama that surrounds that, Paul, makes all this a bigger deal. And I mean, it's gotten crazy, but that's a good thing. We like crazy. We like things that are big. We like things that are surrounded with drama, and there's no end in sight.
Finally, the perfunctory questions for Lee Fitting. Number one, celebrity guest picker tomorrow.
Celebrity guest picker was locked and loaded earlier this week, which I was very thankful for. They're going to have to deal with it for 4 or 5 days. It is someone who's never been on the show before. Strong Baylor ties, went to Baylor. It's a male, and all indications are it will be highly entertaining.
Okay. I couldn't guess last week. I certainly can't guess this week, but I will keep trying, and we'll give the audience an opportunity to hit you up on Twitter with at Lee Fitting on Twitter, and they can guess the celebrity guest picker. Next week, pretty interesting slate. There is one game at Ohio State that I've got a few bucks down on as a favorite. What about you?
You're always that big program, big pedigree type of guy. Like, what if Baylor wins here and it's undefeated Baylor and undefeated Oklahoma State and it's 5 versus 6 or 4 versus 5 or 6 versus 7? Are you going to Columbus to see 13th ranked Michigan State? I'm making that up. At number 2 or 3 Ohio State. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's as much a slam dunk. I think we could certainly go to Columbus next week, and it would be a great scene. It would be tough to argue, but I think you could make an equally as strong case to be in Stillwater next week for undefeated Baylor, undefeated Oklahoma State.
Okay, well, I asked, you answered. This was also the weekend last year, if I remember. You went to the game, the Harvard-Yale game, so you never know with game day.
No, there's another big one in Boston next week. BC hosts Notre Dame at Fenway Park. I saw pictures of the football field carved out at Fenway. It looks awesome. That's on the list as well.
Hey, I know where I would go. I think I'd go to Fenway Park, but I'm not running game day.
Sometimes you are.
Well, I'll try to do a couple of things that I'm not suited for. But okay, so those are those the top 3? Would that be a fair guess?
Yeah, I do have to give a shout out to the Virginia Tech Hokie faithful who have been
after you,
relentless in a good way on Twitter and trying to state their case for game day to come to Blacksburg next week. And listen, we owe a ton to Coach Beamer and to the Hokies for what they've not only done for college football, what they've done for game day. They were big supporters and sort of helped put our show on the map in the early years. And again, we can't satisfy everyone. If we do or we don't go to Blacksburg next week, we will certainly pay our respects to Coach Beamer as he takes the field for the final time in Lane Stadium.
No doubt. Lee Fitting, always must listen to here on our Friday show. Lee, thanks. We'll talk next week.
All right, Paulie. Take care.
Great stuff. Lee Fitting joining us. And we'll take a break. We're live in Starkville, Mississippi. More phone calls, more guests. Again, the Gary Pinkel story. We'll have more reaction to that. Dan Mullen with us earlier. We may listen back a little bit to some of what he had to say here at the top. We'll be right back. We're live in Mississippi. Paul Finebaum here for the... Welcome you back. We're live in Starkville, Mississippi. Dusk has arrived on what has been a spectacular day here. The stadium awaiting tomorrow, 2:30 kickoff between Alabama and Mississippi State. We'll be here in the morning, of course, and do the SEC Nation show. We'll continue with more phone calls. We've given you the big story of the day out of Missouri again, and that is Gary Pinkel stepping down at the end of the season due to health reasons. He discovered in May that he had been diagnosed with lymphoma, a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer of the blood. He initially decided to continue coaching, but a couple weeks ago he reassessed and will now step down at the end of the season. Let's grab some more phone calls here. And Larry is up next in Missouri. Larry, good afternoon.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, how you get along today?
Okay.
Hey, great. Hey, you know what? It's a sad day indeed down here. And I'm not a Mizzou fan, but I am a Gary Pinkel fan. But, I'm going to color a little bit differently here. I'm not a yes man at Dave Matter and all these honks get on here. I mean, there's not anybody left in the state with an ounce of courage to tell the truth as to what's happened out here. I mean, Gary Pinkel saw the handwriting on the wall. Now, I know he's sick, but Gary Pinkel been coaching for a year. But they ruined and ran off 5-6 good people down here, and he just one more to the list. I mean, on a daily basis, they barrage him with his privilege, his salary. And I honestly believe Gary Pinkel just said, the hell with it. He's tired of it. And he didn't need these people. And the last thing I'll say, Mizzou sucked in the Big 12, and they're getting ready to suck again, and they deserve every damn bit of it. Thanks, Paul. Brother, sir.
Daryl is up next in Georgia. Daryl, thank you. Good afternoon.
I would say that the loss of Gary Pinkel is kind of hurts the SEC a little bit. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I think Gary Pinkel was an extraordinary coach and human being, and I think he brought a lot of style and class and substance to this league. Yes.
I just hope he's not pulling an Urban Meyer. I mean, I hope.
Daryl, let me interrupt you for a second. If you know anything about this disease, he's not pulling an Urban Meyer. And
okay. Well, just to say he's going to coach, and all of a sudden, what's going on up there and say he's not going to coach?
I can promise. No one comes out and says they've been diagnosed with a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the blood, and is going to do anything other than pray and seek treatment.
Well, I didn't mean it might have come across the wrong way. I didn't mean that he didn't have that symptom. I just meant that I didn't know if that was exactly the reason why, and if what's going on up there, if that had any influence over him.
Well, I mean that's a fair question, and I don't know the answer to that. Dave Matter said a few weeks ago that they intended to announce it later in the week. I mean, there's no way of knowing. The two connect. The timing of it is interesting, but I just don't think you would have put it out now unless you were just ready to move on. And maybe he is fed up. Maybe that expedited the announcement. I don't think it expedited his decision, though.
Right. I heard Dan Mullen earlier talking about, he said that a great program. I wouldn't call Mississippi State great. More like good, but great. I mean, they're far from great, in my opinion. Hey, well, what's going to happen tomorrow, Paul? Alabama, Mississippi State. What do you think's going to happen?
I probably. I'm not sure yet. I'll wait till tomorrow. I like to soak up the atmosphere here before making a final decision. But I think Alabama right now is playing better than anyone in the country.
Let me ask you this, okay? We saw that Mark Reed was on the hot seat and all that. What is kind of like, I don't understand, is how is Gus Malzahn not on the hot seat? I mean, if they lose tomorrow to Georgia, you got to think Alabama's going to beat them. They will end up 6-6 for the season. I mean, and a team that was ranked in the top 5 picked to win the West and end up 6-6. I do not understand how Gus Malzahn is not.
Well, I think if he hadn't beaten Kentucky or
Kentucky.
Well, I'm just saying, had he lost to Kentucky and hadn't beaten A&M, I think he would be in more trouble. The fact that he was able to win 2 games, most people have moved on, and I think they're hopeful about a win tomorrow. A loss tomorrow would hurt, though, I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, 8 out of the last 10 and counting. I mean, maybe Auburn's lowered their standard. I'll tell you what, I'm going to call the upset. I would pick Mississippi State, but if I did that's the only way Florida can win the SEC championship is by Mississippi State beating Alabama. So I'm going to stick and say, roll tide. See you, Paul.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate the call. Again, what can you say? Let's go to Terry next. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Hey there.
Hey, I just got a question. Last year, everybody was talking about how the SEC could cannibalize themselves.
Right.
Well, now this year, the Big 10 and the Big 12 are in the same position. And my question is, if something happens that is far-fetched, if both of those conferences cannibalize themselves, they all end up with one loss, and somehow Stanford beats Notre Dame, and LSU and Alabama run the table, you think that they would put 2 SEC teams in the top 4?
Terry, I do not. I understand where you're coming from, but I think the odds of that are pretty slim. We have one more hour to go. We're live in Starkville, Mississippi. Don't go anywhere.
Did you ever?
Hey there, everybody. We're Mike and Mike.
It's that time of year again, Greeny.
You're absolutely right, Golick. The college football playoff is here.
And we're giving you the chance to be in with us at the national championship game.
Here's what you do. Listen live every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike at the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone.
Listen live for that winning word, then just enter for your chance to win.
We're picking a winner every week. Who's in?
Visit ESPNradio.com/MikeCFP for complete contest rules.
Hey there, everybody. We're Mike and Mike.
It's that time of year again, Greeny.
You're absolutely right, Golick. The college football playoff is here.
And we're giving you the chance to be in with us at the national championship game.
Here's what you do. Listen live every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike at the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone.
Listen live for that winning word, then just enter for your chance to win.
We're picking a winner every week. Who's in?
Visit ESPNradio.com/MikeCFP for complete contest rules. It's a football Sunday doubleheader. First in Green Bay, the Packers face the Lions.
Got it! Touchdown!
Then at MetLife Stadium, the Giants host the undefeated Patriots. Coverage begins Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.